Alrighty, thanks everyone for being with us today. And our goal here is to really just have a conversation. We've been getting a lot of questions, especially the Black Leadership Initiative, as to how to foster some difficult conversations. And again, we just feel that this has been long overdue, and we have, again, so many perspectives that I think can enrich this conversation. And it's our hope today that this can lead to resolve and continue conversations for the William Penn community, but also the community at large. And so we will begin by tackling this idea of trust. Does anyone want to speak on how you would describe trust? What does trust look like for you?
For me, I'd say, speaking about trust is just an environment with, two or more people. Well, I'm allowed to be myself, and the person I'm speaking to or people I'm speaking to are also allowed to be themselves. And we can bring whatever we bring to the table without having any type of fear or reservation. We obviously just be us as we are, and it's okay to be that, whether we're the same or different.
I like that. I agree. I think it's also kind of like this silent understood agreement between, again, two people, where it's just that whatever you tell me is in confidence. You can trust me. If someone says that to me, it's like, okay, I can, tell you things about myself. You're not going to judge me. You're not going to walk away or, stop being my friend or anything like that. Just respect.
Yeah, I also agree. For me, trust is basically I can be myself around you. I don't have to feel a certain type of way. I can leave my stuff around you without having to double back and question your intentions. So
yeah. So from my perspective, I think trust is something that some people earn very quickly, and some people earn it over time very slowly. From my perspective, trust is not easily given. Sometimes trust has to be earned over a long period of time. And then it's one of those things where it's like, things are okay. You can trust people around you. And that's a safe space. That's a good place to be at. That's a great place for us to feel. But in a society like this, boy, sometimes it's hard to come across trust.
Absolutely. And with that, trust is essential for us to have these types of conversations, that safe space, that place where we're not judged, that absence of fear. But I would like to add to that, because I'd like you all to also speak about what measure of courage brought you here today, brought you here to this moment, to be a part of the conversation. And I'm a believer that there are times where my faith could be down, but your faith can be up, and I need to borrow your faith. And so with that, for someone that is nervous about having these conversations, I would suggest to them to understand that it's not a popularity contest, that we all have a measure of influence and we're all leaders. And if the space around you can be improved, I believe that in part it's leaving every space better than it was when you got there, and that continual assessment. And with that, having children, for example, it is my hope that even when I've gone on, that the space is better because of something that I've contributed, that I've done. And that measure gives me the confidence to want to have these conversations. What about you all? What brought you here today? What made you feel like it was necessary to be here?
I can sort of speak to kind of what you're saying about leaving the space you're in better, especially in the sense of having children. I don't have children myself, but I'm a coach. So I oversee, 30 or 40 different athletes, every day. And, we we operate in this real world. So like, yeah, it sounds cool that we just come to practice and we run and then we get done. But, you're dealing with real people who have real emotions and are experiencing real things that are happening here, that are happening at home, that are happening on TV, that are happening all over the world.
Yeah.
So, you really want to play your part in, like you said, leaving the space better. And that, in a sense, is like, it speaks to kind of your legacy as a person as well. Because you're then known to be a person who does bring a positive light and can help create, or even, maybe not even just create, but help the creation of a space that's positive and is able to move forward and is one that builds, or at least does its best to build everyone that's within the space. It's not picking and choosing who it benefits. It's something that encompasses everyone.
For me, it's I appreciate that perspective of leaving the world a better place for my generation, the generation that's gonna come after me. But for me, it's always been, I felt like a sort of conviction where like this is my duty to educate and influence and be a positive influence in my community, the people around me. Growing up, I've seen a lot of different things on the news, seen it from my parents, experienced things personally. And, I started from a young place, from a, place of being angry all the time. And that wasn't healthy. So I was like, okay, what do I do with this passion and energy? And then I said, okay, I can either be upset and be unproductive, or I can talk to people. I can, go to school and find a passion where I can use that passion to, I guess, leave a better place for the people that come after me, but also, relieve myself of that anger and try to make a place that I do want to live in myself. So
I like that you brought that up too, because to help impact the space around you, you do have to also have done a certain amount of self-improvement as well. So it's important that you build yourself. You need to help yourself before you can help other people. So you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You need to make sure that you can operate well in whatever type of scenario you're in. And that takes a lot of looking in, that takes a lot of self-awareness. So knowing that for you to be able to say, I was in the space where I was angry before, that takes a lot of self-awareness. Not everyone can look back and be okay with saying that. So, it's really cool that you're able to do that.
I think I would add to that, if I could just speak directly to you about that. That is a position that a lot of people don't realize in their lives. That's, I think, more than just introspective and a reflection inside. I think it's courageous that you get to a point that you just say, anger's not good for me. How can we move forward? How can we push the conversation forward? And if you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Instagram, there's a lot of anger, but not a lot of conversation, not a lot of, hey, what can we do to make this better? And I come at it from a position of, God blessed me with a position of influence in this town. I am not from here. I am from Illinois, Northern Illinois. I've been blessed with a position of influence, and if I don't use that to better our community, it is wasted, and I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with wasting that opportunity. So that's courageous for you to say that, because you are so far ahead of some people that they live in a position of anger, and that's all they will ever come to. And that's great. I appreciate that.
thank you.
For me, what brought me here is to try to make a change. And to really understand and learn different perspectives of different people. So growing up in Baltimore, Maryland, I witnessed the Freddie Gray situation, the Baltimore riots. I noticed how certain people tend to react when I tell them where I'm from. It's kind of tired of being treated a certain way, and honestly tired of turning on the news, going on social media, and seeing killings, and like Nikki said, becoming numb to it. It's it's just another day, and it's kind of sad because that's someone's life, and you just want to become a leader and try to step up and try to make a change.
And Nikki, I think something that you said, it triggered me when you said, where do I put it? And I think our time today, in part, will help address that. What do I do when I'm angry? What do I do when I'm afraid? We could either keep it all inside, right? Where again, it's not good for us, right? Or we can figure out how to reimagine it. What can we recreate? My 5-year-old Taj, and I really believe it's a gift. She will find anything, something that I would say is trash. Okay, we're gonna throw this away. But she says, no, I want it for my crafts. I want it for my crafts. And she will end up making some. She made the most beautiful Christmas ornament from a pile of junk that I was about to sweep up and throw away. But I think if we look at it even through that lens, what I view as trash, someone else may view, these are the makings of a masterpiece. And so with that, what do those seeds look like? And so part of our frustration when we talk about social justice, in part I think is perception. And so I do want to talk a little bit about microaggressions. Definitively, when we talk about a microaggression, it can be a statement, and just try to reflect on maybe a microaggression that you've experienced so we can talk about it a little bit more. But a statement, action, or incident regarded as an instance of indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against members of a marginalized group such as a racial or ethnic minority. Now, just to preface this a little bit, there's a lot of research out that talks about 2040, 2050, this change in demographic. Some of our approaches to interaction will change. And so to equip ourselves for that change, we can think of maybe some of our experiences, what we can learn from them, even if you've never experienced them. And I think sometimes that's the hard part. When you haven't experienced it, it might not be real to you. Maybe it's hard to appreciate a full belly if you've never had an empty one. Kind of that concept, right? And so when I think of a microaggression, just that I've experienced as a woman of color, is that your real hair? You know, there was a time when my hair was almost to my tailbone. Right? Do you get that one too?
That's real.
And
Oh my gosh.
when you hear it, it almost instinctively, and I love your shirt today, your statement, Black Girl Magic. Because when you hear that, you start to doubt or question, well, am I beautiful? Or if I didn't have this attribute, would it make me less beautiful? Or even when I've had a conversation with someone in the community that said, oh, well, when I was, at the institution, the professor was really Asian. And I actually, in my workshop, I talk about this particular video. What type of Asian are you? And when we understand that question, or even whether it's asked to you or, you've asked the question, this is where we have those conversations. This is why we have the conversations, because I think in part it was an attempt to connect. But the other part was, here's an opportunity to have the conversation that might be offensive to someone. Because what does really Asian mean? What is that your real hair or beautiful for a dark-skinned girl? That's another common one that people might experience. One of my favorites, right? You talk like a white person. When you are, and I don't know if y'all have experienced it, but growing up, being in gifted rotations, throughout my academic years, you talk like a white girl. As if sounding educated can only be attributed, do you see what I mean, to a certain race. What are some microaggressions you all have experienced?
I get that so much,
Which one, dear?
The last one, you talk like a white person. Like every time I go home, I'm from Baltimore, and I guess my friends, it's just like every time I have a conversation, either I'm texting, I'm arguing, or whatnot, it's,
Yeah.
oh, you talk like you're white or whatnot. What does that mean? You know, to sound educated. White, it's not, white is a skin color, you know, so it's not, that doesn't make sense. So it kind of, you know, annoys me. So.
It kind of follows along with the "is that your real hair?" I play volleyball, and growing up, so I've been playing for almost 10 years. And growing up back home, before you accepted into college, you do tournaments and things like that. So I would travel to Anaheim, LA area all the time, and I had my braids in one day, and it looks exactly like this. And I was playing, and they were a little old. And as I was playing, one of them fell out. And I'm trying to normalize that now more because stuff happens. You see, strands of hair on the floor all the time. But this one is bigger. A white lady stood up and said, "Snake!"
Wow.
Is that a snake? It doesn't look like a snake at all. And I was younger than 18, but older than 15, 16. So, and I have anxiety and, I'm already a, relatively shy person. That, I did not need that day. And so experiencing that, even though it wasn't her, saying, "Is that your real hair?" It was just like, it's obviously mine. And I had to pick it up and walk to a trash can. And that was just embarrassing enough, so.
So I guess my question would be not understanding it from necessarily the same perspective.
Sure.
Do you think most of what you're experiencing with microaggressions is meant in the proper way, but is offensive at its face? But if we listen with an open mind, we can then open the conversation like we're doing today, instead of just being angry about it and being anxious about it. And I understand that. Most of us, especially middle school years, we have that level of anxiety that's just terrible. We all go through that. And then some of it sticks with you, and there's certain things about us that always bother us or upset us or we're concerned about. I have that. You have that. Everybody has that. I've never met anybody that really didn't have that anxiety or that lack of self-confidence.
Sure.
Do you think mostly they're meant as a backhanded insult, or are they probably meant in a positive way? They're just out of ignorance.
I think it's both. They definitely can be intended in a malicious way. Especially, and I think it speaks to your point on self-awareness. When you're in a room in spaces where most people don't look like you, you have to be mindful of how someone else is experiencing the same situation, because with bias, it can be influenced and shaped from these very experiences. And they can be hurtful to people when you make assumptions about someone that is not true and speaks to who they are and their identity. Because again, that self-doubt, which is already, there, it's almost magnified. What were you wanting to say, V?
So for me, I think I've got a bit of a unique perspective because I'm born and raised in Zimbabwe. So when I first came to the US, I had I've got a long list of microaggressions, but what I try to do is I try to categorize the ones that I do take as offense, and then ones that I think are just from a place of not knowing, So I remember when I first got here, I was having a conversation with a guy who's here from the US, a white guy, and he was like, "Man, you speak so well. Did you learn that on the plane? You think I learned an entire dialect on one flight?" So I was like, "No." And he's like, "So why do you speak so well?" And I was just, people from speak the way I speak. It's just how it is, speak English as well. So I didn't take it offensively. I found it funny. I felt sorry for him. You really think that? That's, but then I've had other things like a guy came to me with a phone, and we were just speaking. He's like, "Oh, I'm from Zimbabwe." I told him I'm from Zimbabwe. He's like, "Oh, really? So you know what this is?" And I'm like your phone? You think you don't have phones? And, so that was offensive to me. So I just kind of just categorize them as the ones that I do take offense and the one that I don't. And then if I do take offense, I try to have a conversation. Like, I want you to understand how that sounds coming from my side, because I'm not primitive. I'm not silly. I'm not uneducated. I'm not any of that. So I want you to understand and think about what it is that you're saying. So the next time you have a conversation with someone who's, maybe if they're not even from Zimbabwe, just from anywhere, they don't even have to be from out of the U.S. Just think about the way you ask someone about the way they are, and if you do think it's going to come out in the way, have a conversation. Like, hey, I'm going to ask you something, and I'm not trying to make it sound offensive. I genuinely don't know what is X, Y, Z, and then you continue the conversation in that way. So that's how I try to deal with those type of situations. I try to, if there's something that I do find offensive, I explain that I do in a way that's not. I try to be not threatening about it. If it is something that makes me mad, as I know I sometimes can't have the best conversations when I'm angry. So I'll take a breath and either leave, or I don't know, maybe change up the conversation and try to bring it back up later. Try to bring it up in a time when I know I can have a more level-headed conversation. Just how I try to do it.
Isn't it amazing that we live in the 21st century? We have the entire information of the entire world in the palm of our hands, but we're still having episodes like that,
Right.
where all we know is the people around us in a couple block area. That's all we know. So your instance, with a piece of hair falling out and someone overreacting, that is just ignorance of culture. That's just somebody who has no clue what they're seeing, if we don't assume it was on purpose. If it was just an ignorant comment, that is something that we have to learn. And that is something I find all the time with people I know. They are ignorant of other cultures. They just have no idea what they're dealing with. They have no idea. You have bringing up what you said right before this and to talk about lotion. That is something that some people have no concept of. They don't even understand the word or what you're talking about.
Right.
I grew up with it. I was a high school SRO in an area in Rockford, and I had to learn all kinds of things that people were talking about. I had no clue. My cousins didn't talk like that. My brothers and sisters didn't talk like that. But we have to be able to approach that from an open-minded, hey, these people are different from me, and that's cool, but I got to learn a different vocabulary, a different way of talking, and that's okay. Like, I can be open-minded and do that, but try not to be offensive at the same time. Some people, I agree, they are making backhanded compliments, but they're not meant as a compliment. They're meant to make you feel self-conscious. I think some people, it's just out of ignorance. They don't know, they're trying to be nice, and it just comes out terrible.
Yeah, so I think it's just a matter of, like, if you can talk that is really backhanded, like, let them know, like, okay, like, I see what you're trying to do, and then, deal with the situation. But, like, sometimes people just genuinely don't know. And I know that because even though, like, people have had, silly questions coming towards me, there are also things that I didn't know before. So, like, when coming to the US, so for example, like, a lot of what people know about countries and the things overseas is what they see on TV or see in books and all that stuff.
Right.
And it's been the same for us. So our experience of America, a lot of the world is, music videos, movies, just that type of, media. And so my opinion of America before is everything was, New York, Chicago, LA,
Right.
so all the massive skyscrapers and supercars and stuff everywhere. So when I came to the Midwest, I was like, whoa, this is...
Were you disappointed?
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed. When I was driving from the airport, I was like, man, this is where I'm at? Like, But it's just, because I just genuinely didn't know, So I think, that for me makes it easier for me to have these conversations, because I know, like, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know, and I know there's a lot of stuff that people don't. So no one knows everything. So it's a matter of, if you meet someone who genuinely doesn't know, if they're giving you the respect to let you know that they don't know, then you can educate them. In the same way, you will get educated on things that you don't know.
And let's continue this conversation, because it leads into our next topic in terms of when you're in a space and someone might be ignorant or doing something intentionally, what are some tools that we can use? You talked about, taking a breath. And I know for me, when I'm upset, I'm not at my best. And I know that about myself. And so, you have to be emotionally aware. But then I also think about, how do we resolve this situation? And I think that we can't have this conversation without talking about the impact of the imagery that we see, the content that's posted on social media, that is how we impart our influence and how our way of thinking, if we've not been beyond our, physical spaces or parameters rather that we've lived in. And I think about when you're going through that process, how you, like, I can recall when I first moved up here, I'd never seen snow before. I'm from Florida, didn't even want to see snow, so I wasn't missing anything. And so I was walking into Walmart one day, and it was my first winter here, and a group of men came out with ski masks on, and my heart skipped a beat because I'm like,
Right.
are they here to rob the place? In Florida,
Yeah, if you have a ski mask on, that means one thing.
if you have a ski mask on, that might mean, one thing, but it's cold. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes, and I know this is a hard conversation to have, I'm thinking right now of, just hate crimes. I think of conversations I have with my son, about Emmett Till. I think about violence against women. I think about our Asian brothers and sisters, that are going through what they're going through. I'm thinking about the LGBTQ community, our brothers and sisters, and what they're going through. But I think in part, when we talk about equipping someone with tools, because I often ask myself, how do you teach empathy? How do you teach tolerance? And my first knee-jerk reaction is understanding what immersion looks like, understanding what exposure looks like, but also where do you fit in the world? And so when we talk about some of these stereotypes, I'm not gonna lie, I'm disheartened when I see what gets people's attention.